There we go. Well, again, thank you for those of you that are on board, and we'll welcome the others that sign in as we get started this evening. My name is Lee Altadonna. I'm president of the Pennsylvania Audubon Council. If you do not know me, or if we've not met, but this evening we're really excited to talk about relaunching the Bird Habitat Recognition Program. And we have a series of slides that I'll share. We have a few of the folks from our Birdtown Task Force that'll be helping us with the program. And we only have about 21 slides. I know there's at least one or two folks that were only able to be on board for an hour, but I'll really talk about what we need in a minute. Let me see how successful I am for sharing my screen. I'm always amazed when I can do it.
Actually, you already have shared your screen.
Can you see the slideshow?
Yes.
Yeah,
Wow.
you need to put it in presentation mode though. We're
Right.
seeing,
Yeah, I did. Yep.
Yeah.
there we go.
And then I'm going to put it in speaker mode on the picture. Actually, I don't need anything there. All right, it's just me talking. But again, welcome. And this is the first of 21 slides that we'll be sharing this evening. Hopefully, we'll be able to get through this slide presentation relatively quickly. There's some slides toward the end that really talk about council role, the chapter role, and the Birdtown roles in terms of this program. And what I'm looking for is a real opportunity to get feedback, kind of a mid-course correction if we need it, or a halftime report. But it's great to have some feedback if there are some things that we haven't thought of, or some questions that you have that we haven't addressed. Several members of the Birdtown or the Bird Habitat Recognition Task Force are with us this evening, and we'll be able to take a look at that. One thing I want to say at the very outset is that Pennsylvania Audubon Council recently reviewed its conservation priorities of highest priority, and the natural habitat, native plants, continue to have 100% support from all of our chapters. It's a major area of interest that has been recognized by our chapters. It was 2 years ago incorporated into our high priority issues. Heidi Shiver wrote what we call an education and outreach statement. And again, this was over 2 years ago. If you have a chance to go to our website and check it out, you'll see that there was a good bit of attention paid to bird habitat recognition and educating our communities about the need for, really educating about native plants and their importance to birds and other wildlife, insects, and other wildlife. So with that, whoops, where am I going here? All right, so here's the goals of this evening's program, or the overview. I want to talk briefly about the goals. I'm going to turn it over to Steve Safier, who we're fortunate to have with us. He created the original bird habitat recognition program in Pennsylvania with then when he was a staff member of Audubon, Pennsylvania. We'll just talk briefly about that. We'll also talk a little bit about Kelly McGinley's effort to relaunch the program and redefine the program just about 5 or 6 years ago. And then we'll talk about the impetus for the council to establish the bird habitat recognition program. Since Audubon Mid-Atlantic had ended their support for the program in the early part of 2024, we'll talk about the response of the council and Birdtown, Pennsylvania leadership, and a meeting we had over last summer, and then our chapter gatherings in the fall, where the bird habitat recognition program was was a point of discussion. We have program components that we want to talk about, and then I think a deep dive into some discussion about the roles of the council, the chapters, and the bird towns in the program, and next steps. Also, a timeline is in here as well. Steve, I'll turn it over to you. I think the original program was called Audubon at Home, and you were the creator of that with funds from the Toyota Together Green grant that National Audubon received from Toyota, and then provided for projects throughout the Audubon network, and you were one of the grant recipients. So take it away, Steve.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here. Love to see all those familiar faces out there. Actually, Lee, the original funding for Audubon at Home at the National Science Office was through the NRCS, the USDA, with a major appropriation that we received. Frank Gill was instrumental, obviously, in getting that. And through that funding, we developed the Audubon at Home program that was not only regional booklets about gardening for life and native gardening for birds, but also we developed some national materials at the science office, which at that time was located in Ivyland, Bucks County, and we were off and running. And during my time there, one of my fond responsibilities was answering inquiries from all over the country about just a myriad of questions, bird questions and program questions. And I would get often hear during my time, my 4 years at the science office was, you know, National Wildlife Federation has this backyard program. How come Audubon doesn't? And at the time, I think NWF either had a television show or it was just ending on the Animal Planet. So they had a lot of momentum behind their program, and several 100,000 applicants in the program that was established way before the television program, but they had some really good momentum at that time. And people were noticing it and wondering why Audubon didn't have a program. It was tossed around a little bit in the national office, marketing and science, and it was decided not to pursue it at that time. Fast forward a couple of years, I switched from the science office to Audubon, Pennsylvania. And at that time, that's when Together Green funding came through. And I had the opportunity right away to develop a backyard program on a statewide level rather than a national level, hoping that this would serve as sort of a model. Even though some chapters had done it already throughout the country, including Pennsylvania, there had already been some backyard programs. But I wanted to have a comprehensive program that created a network and some materials and opportunities and events and things like that. And so we did. I developed the application, pretty basic. It was good faith application. In other words, we didn't go out and certify properties, and that was a directive of the National Audubon Society. Everything had to be vetted through the national office, and it was decided to create a habitat recognition program rather than a certification. It was too strict or too there was too much legal baggage attached to the word certification. So we decided to go with bird habitat recognition. And in fact, even the language on the sign, the original sign in Pennsylvania, was vetted through National Audubon. And then eventually program grew slowly. We marketed it. We had creative materials, and it grew pretty slowly, which at some point led to the development of Birdtown, really as a catalyst for creating more bird habitat recognition customers, if you will, or members in this network. And during that time, we created a newsletter, Birdtown flyer, and we actually had a online forum for a little while, and just created this network mostly focused in the southeastern Pennsylvania. There's the original sign on the left there. It's a collector's item now. If you have one.
Yeah. Did you want that
Yeah,
up
you
yet?
could switch.
Okay.
Yeah, you could go to that. I'm just talking through it. But it did work. Developing the Birdtown program, we developed this logo and then started using that on the signs. And it really did work to not only increase bird habitat recognition registration, but also populated events for not only chapters, but for bird towns and just events in general. I would publicize every native plant sale that was going on in the state. And it was my goal to have, bird habitat BHR people there and Birdtown people there. And if some of you may remember the Native Plant Conference in Millersville that they used to have annually. I missed that event, but it was a big event, and my goal was to get as many Birdtown people there and BHR people there, and eventually we would meet up and get together, and it became a very social event, and so it grew. And I think when I left Audubon in 2018, we had about 2,500 properties registered. We managed to tally acreage. I don't remember the number, but we counted acreage and native plants and things like that throughout the program. So, and that's basically the program in a nutshell, how it was developed. This what you're looking at here is actually one of the National Audubon NRCS funded brochures, one of many. They also helped fund a couple of booklets throughout the country. There's one in Colorado. The first one was in Seattle. We have one in Pennsylvania called the Gardening for Life in Southeastern Pennsylvania, funded mostly by Waste Management at Audubon, Pennsylvania. And some of those copies are available at the Bucks County Audubon Society Honey Hollow. They still have it out for sale or for giving it away. At this point, it's more than 20 years old. Anyway, so those materials were developed early on nationally. We even created a desert variety of this particular brochure and others like it. So, and that's so it all started with Audubon at Home. Audubon at Home exists, I think Northern Virginia and maybe Ohio still has something they call Audubon at Home, but for the most part, it's become native plants for birds at the national level and bird-friendly communities, more so than Audubon. And the name was sort of dropped after it left the science office and was sort of dispersed through departments throughout National Audubon.
Yeah, just as a point of interest, this image on the screen right now is one of several I picked up. I was up at a meeting of Audubon chapters in New York and Connecticut this past weekend.
Oh, wow.
They had a healthy schoolyard, a healthy apartment, a healthy townhouse, a healthy, the variety of versions of this. And it's really a lot more than just the cover that you see here. But
that's right. There was also web material to back this stuff up, and I should say that there was a Bucks County artist who did all of the drawings for the brochure. So that was kind of fun.
That's great. Well, thanks, Steve, and it's great that Steve is really laying the foundation for the program. Is still very involved with us, and he's on the board of Birdtown, Pennsylvania. Next, I'll talk a little bit about the genesis of the Bird-Friendly Habitat Program. Steve mentioned he left Audubon, Pennsylvania at 2018. In 2018, somewhere along the line after that, Kelly McGinley, who many of you know, was a staff member of Audubon, Pennsylvania, worked with chapters on some other issues. And one of her tasks was to undertake a review of the program to relaunch it, reconfigure it if it needed. One of the things that she did was she recruited chapter leaders, some of whom are part of the Bird Habitat Recognition Task Force today, that are looking at the program now. But she recruited them and really worked interactively with them to get their advice, get their support to change the program. There was a revision of the application, a revision to the design of the yard sign, and then also other support materials were produced to help the program. And I think a number of chapters became more directly involved with Kelly's initiative. Some of you that are on the call this evening may be among those chapters. And then she relaunched it. There was centralized support for registration of new properties. I think after Kelly left Audubon, Pennsylvania and Audubon Mid-Atlantic, I think John James Audubon Center had a person who processed applications that came in either online or that were shared from bird towns or chapters that came in. And the program support from Audubon Mid-Atlantic continued into early 2024. Here's some of the support materials. The sign looks very similar, but there were some changes, from the group that worked with Kelly. And the rack card that's on the left is really a front and back of the same card, but to get it in the same image was something that was developed as well. There were other materials too. There were some. What was there was a great thing with native flowers year by year. Like flowers recommended or native plants recommended each year. I keep wanting to say they were the Dirty Dozen. It was based on that movie title, but it was not. It was not the Dirty Dozen, and
It was the Birdie Dozen.
the Birdie Dozen, which
Yes.
kind of a cute title and something that was made available for chapters to reproduce when they did their tabling, and a lot of the chapters were able to, get people to sign up with the new application and get a sign. And when the cost of the sign was around $20 or $25, depending on whether it had to be processed centrally or through the chapter. But that was the situation there. Then after Audubon Mid-Atlantic shared with chapters that they were no longer going to be able to provide the administrative support for the program, we did a meeting in July, I think it was July 16th, an evening meeting, and we heard from some Birdtown leaders and from chapter leaders that they thought the demise of the program really wasn't something they wanted to see. They encouraged the council to consider taking on the bird habitat recognition program as part of a program of the council, similar in a way that was done with the Birdtown program. That had once been an Audubon Pennsylvania program, and then when Audubon Mid-Atlantic was formed and Audubon Pennsylvania was merged with Maryland and DC, the Birdtown program was dropped, and the council, especially through the efforts of Heidi and the board members that became a part of the council effort, it was their own board, and then they redeveloped and just created the Birdtown program as we know it today, and we're now up on 79 bird towns across the state with multiple chapter involvement and more in the line to become recognized. So that's been very successful, and the hope here was that the bird habitat program could be resurrected in the same way. And so Birdtown board and the Birdtown Pennsylvania board and the council board both supported exploring this. It became a focus of discussion at our fall council gatherings. And in each case, the chapter gatherings that were in Pittsburgh and then in Harrisburg vicinity and then in Allentown, we heard again and again that the bird habitat recognition program was well worth the effort to try to resurrect it. And then we recruited a task force late in December of last year and the beginning of January. And this is the Bird Habitat Recognition Task Force. I do believe I captured everyone. If I forgot someone, then I will need to correct the record, but I am pretty certain, put the names in alphabetical order, and you can see that there's some broad chapter representation across the state. And we think that's a pretty healthy way to take a look at reconfiguring the program. This was the major goals for this task force, their charge, if you will, to look at the goals of the program, what were going to be the benefits for the participants, review and revise the application, review and revise the yard sign, especially since we were not going to use the art of the prior program. We need to look at website and technology support for the program. How was the program going to be administered, including the role of the council, the chapters, and the bird towns as this program is rolled out. And the budget. How do we fund the launch and make the program sustainable? Here are the goals, and I think we looked at this early on, and we kind of used the word engage, educate, and empower. And I think from the fall gatherings, one of the items that the chapters particularly noted that this became a great pathway or portal to engage new people in the community in their chapter. That was something they noted with the bird habitat recognition program historically as they did this, and they thought that was very important to get people engaged, people that are interested in learning about native plants, converting their yards, and then being able to use those folks in terms of connecting with them to help educate them, get them on a list for the local chapters, newsletters or programs or other kinds of outreach. For the bird town, if they happen to be an individual in a bird town, to also become connected with the kinds of materials that their local bird town might be able to provide. And some of the things that Birdtown, Pennsylvania provides was important as well, including some of the webinars and workshops that are done. And of course, the clutch meetings that some of the chapters are doing with their bird towns. And then we use the word empower. And, this was to enlist support where people take active measures. Maybe, I know somebody from Lycoming may be on the call, but I know Bruce is not able to be on the call, but getting people to turn out, they're doing a major park, plantings of trees and other kinds of things in a major park in Lycoming, in Williamsport and in Lycoming County in Williamsport, and that, getting people to turn out for that. And in our education and outreach statement, if it's a bird town or even a chapter, the potential to pursue proclamations or resolutions or ordinances at the municipal level related to native plants was something that we thought that as you build this program, you get support from folks that are have their yards and are committed to their yards to be native plants. So benefits, if somebody's a participant, and this is something I know Val is not on the call tonight, but this is something that she has repeated often. President Conacucci got up on is, what's the value to a participant and being in the program? And again, chapters can, now include them as they get the names of people who have bird habitat programs or have converted their yards or their properties. Doesn't have to be a homeowner, it could be a business owner or a place of worship or school or something else where they can get involved with a chapter, whether it's the monthly programs, the bird walks, maybe some other events or activities that the chapter's undertaking. With bird towns, I know we have the editor Bird Beat on the call this evening. It's a newsletter that comes out every other month, and that if people have their yard or their property recognized, they would have the benefit of getting this newsletter that is really very well done and packed with information and ideas. And so they would get on the mailing list for Birdtown, Pennsylvania for the Bird Beat. And then also with bird towns themselves, that participants that are in bird towns would have the opportunity to get involved with activities that the bird town is promoting. And then the council and chapters can invite support too, being more in the, I'll use the term advocacy, but to try to invite support or to link to other ways that we can get more things happening at the municipal level to support the kinds of things that can make native plants more widespreadly more widespread and take away barriers. I think we still have communities that have weed ordinances that need to be reviewed and revised so that people that have native plants that grow are not being viewed as having an unkept lawn. This is really designed to keep people aware and educated that lawns are one of the most wasted use of space when it comes to birds. Here's the application. It's still under review. I think these are Steve's comments on the side. But if Laura, if you're willing, if you wouldn't mind talking about the revision of the process that your group is going through and some of the changes that you're promoting. And I know most of those, I think, are just need to be embedded in a new document that we'll probably have early next week. Are you okay with taking the ball, Laura?
Sure. Yep, no problem. So yeah, there was a small group of us who volunteered. If you can go back to the previous slide, Lee.
Yeah,
that
what
would
did
be
I do? How do I go back? There it is. There we are.
Yeah, first we looked at the Audubon, Pennsylvania program application that some of us had worked on with Kelly McGinley. And there are really a lot of good
You
features
might as
to it.
well. I'm listening to a webinar, but you might as well.
Yeah.
There are really a lot of good
It
features.
should
to
be
it.
over. It'll
Yeah, just-
be over probably by 8.
Yeah, Barb, can you mute your microphone?
Perfect.
Thank you.
Love you. Love you. No worries.
You might want to try again, Lee. I don't know that she caught that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, there she did.
There might be a way for me to mute everybody, but I don't know how to do that. That's my problem. All right. I think we're muted now. If everybody's muted, that would help, with the exception of Laura and me. Go ahead, Laura.
Okay. So yes, the application that Kelly developed with a task force of Audubon leaders was definitely a step up, and the current group of there are 3 of us with Steve, so that makes 4, looked at that application to begin with, and there were really a lot of good features to it. And so we didn't really make any major changes. We tweaked the wording a little bit on the front, and the top part of where the data goes for the information still needs to be revised, but it's going to look pretty similar to what we had under Kelly. And then I don't know, do you have a copy of the back side, Lee?
Unfortunately, I do not.
Okay, so the back side, we did make more changes. We tried to make it a little bit more user-friendly. The one under Kelly's watch was, I guess, a little bit more, let's see, how do I want to word it? Well, you had to figure out percentages, and you had to be pretty concise in terms of, for example, how much your property had mowed grass and how much you might have as far as perennials and grasses that are native. So we loosened that up a little bit, and we followed the information that Kelly had on her application, but we changed it to, I think, a more user-friendly wording. So for example, we didn't ask for percentages, but we said, as one example, does your property have grasses and perennials native to Pennsylvania or the Mid-Atlantic area? And then there are 2 boxes, yes, or the other choice is working on it. And we assume that if somebody wasn't able to answer that question at all, they just wouldn't check the boxes. So we came up with 13 questions to help the person be a little bit inspired by thinking, okay, I see there's a question here about invasives. Maybe I'm not really doing much about invasives, but hopefully this will inspire them. And so it's a series of questions for them to consider and hopefully inspire them to take more action. And then at the bottom, there's some information that needs to be revised about the cost of the program and the sign, and if they'd like to be involved with getting emails from the Audubon Council or the local Audubon chapter. So we're still doing a little revision on that, but that's basically the idea.
I think Jill with Appalachian Audubon is putting together all of the suggested revisions to come out with a kind of the interim or the finalized result of the work of Laura and her group. I will indicate that you'll hear more about a QR code. We're going to be working with Function and Flow to look at ways to make this more of a digital process wherever possible, so that the data can go right into an Excel spreadsheet, and that we can sort that data by chapter, by bird town, by some other features. If we want to know, which properties have a significant proportion of the yard in native habitat versus a property that is, relatively at the beginning of their efforts at native planting, there may be some ways that we can reach out to those groups based on the way we're able to sort the data. And the council will be responsible for the collection, sharing, and storage of the data and getting it out to chapters. We did know and had reports that under the old system that some people didn't get their signs, even though they filled out the information, and that chapters were not getting the names of individuals who had filled that out, the form, and had been identified as a bird habitat recognition person. So we're hoping that we'll be able to correct some of those kinds of oversights. The sign, I know Barbara's on the call. Oops. Barbara is on the call. I was very involved with the sign as well, but Barbara, would you be willing to go over some of the major changes to the sign and changes that are not that major?
Sure. Yeah, I think not that major is the main theme. We thought that the last version of the Audubon, Pennsylvania sign was really very effective. It was visually very captivating and pretty large size, good size that could be visible from a distance for passersby. And the wording was nice. So we basically worked off of that design. The major change, of course, is that we could not use the old logo. So we've got the Birdtown logo on here instead. And the wording, of course, refers to the Pennsylvania Audubon Council. I think our two innovations really were the QR code, which, Lee, is that going to take people to the application form?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. And then leave it at the bottom, and also to balance it out and kind of localize it, there'll be room for a chapter logo.
Yeah, that was one of the things we heard, Barbara, at the chapter gatherings, that it'd be great if the sign had a place to put the chapter logo. And so Alice, who was part of the sign group, sent us the I don't know if it's called vectorized. There, only certain ways the logo can come that can be put in this way. This is not. This is just a sample QR code that won't take you anywhere that I'm aware of. And then this sign, we put it together. This is just a Word document essentially, and when the sign is finalized, it will be done by an individual that has that kind of art skill to put the size of the letters and other kinds of things in. We'll also add the chapter, website, the web address on there as well. But this is pretty important, and we think that I know in the past, I think even when Steve was running the program, there was a lot of discussion. People see the sign and say, "Hey, how can I get that for my yard?" Well, now having a QR code. And Barbara, I remember your contribution to the conversation we were having about QR codes, that people my age don't necessarily understand QR codes. And I think because of your background with Lehigh University, said anybody under 55 knows exactly what a QR code is. So made the group laugh, but it made the point is that this becomes a way to help disseminate to a neighbor or to someone that's walking by a yard or a property that has the sign, so that they can go to the find the website and find the application as well in terms of that. The one important thing about the application is, of course, when people put their address and zip code unlocks the key to what chapter a person belongs to, because every chapter territory is, designated by zip code. So that's the way we'll be able to sort on an Excel spreadsheet folks that belong to one chapter or the other. And then with the address, we can identify whether they are in a property that's in an existing bird town. So that's important. The other thing is we're really going to emphasize getting the application filled out digitally, so it doesn't have to be re-inputted from a hand written form. But that's a conversation that has yet to take place. But we want feedback on that from all of you when we get to that point. The website, we've really talked a little bit about what needs to be on the website. The Pennsylvania Audubon Council doesn't have a bird habitat recognition program. This will be a major program. I will say that the Birdtown website has a very well-developed native plant and bird habitat recognition piece, but Birdtown, Pennsylvania outlines quite appropriately all of the recognition programs that we're aware of, whether it's National Wildlife, whether it's any of the other groups that offer signs. They will add hours to that lineup of programs that they have profiled on their website. And again, this will be the one that we promote primarily through the Pennsylvania Audubon Council's side of the website. And cross-link that. I think one of the interesting things, if you look at the Birdtown, Pennsylvania website that reviews quite a few of the programs, what's interesting, the image, the photo that goes with it is a yard that must have six signs that this individual's property has earned in recognition or certification, which also suggests to us that people like, there are often people that like to have their yard noted in multiple programs of, recognition signs. I've gone by several yards that have 2, 3, and 4 signs, and you may have as well. So that's the part with that. We are working with Function and Flow. That's Kelly McGinley's company to help develop this component. Now, this is a couple quick things about administration of the program. There's going to be a role for the council, a role for the chapters, and a role for the bird towns and the bird town clutches that we need to really sort out. And as we get into the remainder of this program, there's some detail here. And for those of you that are a bird town, representing a bird town or representing a chapter, we really need your feedback, whether some of the things that we're trying to delineate works particularly well, or if it's a burden and, is it feasible? So let's get into that next. So here's the roles and responsibilities of the council. Okay, the relaunch or the launch will be funded by the Pennsylvania Audubon Council. There won't be a cost passed along to chapters of bird towns. So this includes yard signs, rack cards. We're looking at smaller window clings, some other kinds of things. Window clings are perhaps for people that are in an apartment and have done some native plants on their balcony or things of that sort that a sign might not be appropriate for. But underwriting all of that would be the responsibility for the launch from the Pennsylvania Audubon Council budget. There would not be a fee passed along or needed to be collected by the chapter or the bird towns in the clutch at this point. And I don't know if there would be any in the future because we hope to make it sustainable. All right, well, the council is going to need to recruit and enroll chapters interested in participation in the bird habitat program. So there'll be more of conversation with chapter presidents or representatives of chapters, because we need to know how many chapters want to participate and are agreeable to take on some of the roles and responsibilities responsible, that a chapter needs to take on. We'll need the web address, and we'll need the chapter logo in PNG or vector format or whatever is going to be needed to add that to the signs that are created specifically for each chapter. We'll be able to work with the supplier of the signs. Once we've actually priced with 3 different vendors signs, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But once we select a vendor, we'll have a proof for each chapter's bird habitat recognition sign and be able to look at it before they go into production. We want to look and have the council know who the key point of contact is for the BHR program in a chapter, and I'll go a little bit more into that in the next slide. It looks like we need to get a break on the creation of the signs, a minimum order of 50 signs per chapter. We can do more. We might even be able to do less, but there's a cost for fewer signs that ups the unit cost for each sign if it's a smaller order. So I put 50 in at this point, and I'm assuming that most chapters, if they got an initial supply of 50 signs, especially if they're chapters with multiple bird towns, 50 may actually not be enough. So we'll need to hear from the chapter, how many signs they think they would like to have in the initial rollout of the program. We'll produce the rack card. Idea would be to use the chapter's logo on the rack card as well, and the QR code on the rack card. There'll be some other redesigned features in the rack card, including benefits of participating in the program, not just about the program itself. And then we do want to have a section for the chapter website. It'll be on the council's website, but we'll do and produce a document or a piece that a chapter can take and adapt for their own website. And then the council will maintain a record of all of the properties that are enrolled. I did not mention under number 8, we expect to do a process not with checks, but with a digital online payment to simplify, collecting costs for a sign from applicants. And we can talk a little bit more about the nitty-gritty of what happens if you have someone, if you're at a tabling event at a native plant sale. How do we take care of that? And that may be something we need to have further discussion about. But the idea is that at the council website, the digital application comes in and the digital payment comes in. And then you will talk about how that individual that applied centrally gets assigned through your chapter. And then again, we'll have a key contact information with each chapter in Birdtown in its clutch. We'll talk more about that. Now, here's the chapter responsibility. Here's where we need, some feedback. We already know that a chapter like the Audubon Society of Western Pennsylvania has had a certification program in place for years. They're not participating in this program. They provide a lot of advice and support, but they will not be participating. There might be other reasons a chapter will decide, we're not ready at this time, but it's important to note that we want to recruit chapters. The chapters, participation is voluntary. We hope that chapters have at least one bird town. We'll jump in on this, and even if you don't have a bird town, we'd love to have chapters participate, even if no bird town is in their chapter territory. But it's voluntary. We're going to recruit and try to see how many chapters of the 20 in Pennsylvania that will sign on. They will need a contact person as their liaison to the bird habitat recognition program to the council. That person would be the one that would provide some of the information needed to produce the signs. We will probably have, and in terms of the discussion with some of the folks that have given us quotes on the production of signs, they can ship the signs and we'd ship them to an address that we give them in each chapter across the state that is participating. So somebody's going to get a load of 50 signs, or more, depending on your chapter. And we need to know, that address and who that individual is going to be so we can confirm shipments and that type of thing. We're going to want the chapters to convene a meeting of the Birdtown clutches to determine the interest of the participation of their bird towns and get a revised estimate of the number of signs needed. The council will order the baseline number of BHR signs and then continue to be the source of supplying bird habitat recognition signs as they need to be replaced. If this program is extraordinarily successful and you use up all 50 or 100 signs or whatever you order initially, we would have the council order the additional signs that are needed to replenish signs that have been already spoken for and distributed. We're going to promote the chapters to promote meetings and outreach events in their communities. So many of you already do this. So you'll promote the program. You'll encourage online payments, applications and payments. Again, Function and Flow is working on that this could actually be done on a smartphone or in some other ways that the applications come in digitally. And we'll need to talk and explore that further. They're literally working on that, and I will have more information on how that will work after Function and Flow gets back to me next week and how they're working that out. But they are talking about then, again, the application that comes in digitally would go right into an Excel spreadsheet, which is a very easy way to be able to sort and distribute to the appropriate chapter or the appropriate bird town the names of individuals who are now proud recipients of being recognized as a bird habitat yard or property. Again, we're going to need to have chapters work with their bird town clutches for those that have them. Put some information on their webpage so that there's information about the bird habitat program on their own website, and then links to the council website will be there as well. And then there needs to be a distribution system. If you think about the council as kind of, the central warehouse, if you will, and each of the chapters that participate, signs will be distributed to each chapter, and then the chapter needs to distribute the signs, the bird habitat signs, to the individuals or the participants or the applicant that is successful in each of their chapter territory. That's going to vary by chapter. If it's one of their members, if it's a bird town, coming up with a system on how to get that. We're trying to avoid a mailing of a sign because of the weight of the sign. There is an expense, and we think by the distribution, decentralizing it, the chapter is going to have to act as a kind of FedEx or UPS distribution system for a way to get a sign to a person in their chapter territory and a bird town in their chapter territory. We'll come back to that. I really want to hear more from you. The bird town. We think the bird towns are going to be a very important source of getting these signs distributed, and based on the interest that has already been expressed by a lot of our bird town leaders and participants, they really are looking forward to this program. So they do a lot already within their municipalities. So we'll need to have them help with the delivery of the yard signs. The chapter may want to work with specific bird towns to have another point of distribution, bird town by bird town. I think my chapter has 14 bird towns in its chapter territory. And we'll probably want to look at a way to see how signs could be more easily distributed to a cluster of bird town, separate from a clutch, but there's, ways that we can make it a little bit easier for somebody that lives in one particular township or borough to get a sign from another bird town liaison in a neighboring bird town or something of that sort, or from the chapter. We look, bird towns, they're continuing work to improve habitat in parks and schools and so on. Really want to encourage them to have these places designated for bird habitat recognition. I think starting with Steve's program, there was no fee assessed to these kinds of public places that the signs were given. And we need to assess that, especially in light of sustainability. How can we sponsor signs for these kinds of public places, public library or a municipal park where we've done some work, or Birdtown has done some work with tree planting and so on, that they get the designation. I think that's important. And then other ways to have the council involved with the chapter in Birdtown to think about proclamations, resolutions, and ordinances. So we're going to circle back to this, put your questions in the chat as we're going through this. There's only a couple more slides, and we'll ask Steve to moderate what is in the chat. And I'm going to take the PowerPoint down so everybody can see one another. And we might be able to do this depending on the number of people that are on board now, that we might be able to do this in a more freewheeling conversation. But here's a framework for projected timeline. I did share slides with members of the task force earlier. That slide was wrong. This is a different slide, just to do an alert to the task force members that have printed out or have taken a look at the slides I presented earlier this afternoon. You did not see this one in this format. This was there was a lot of I don't know what with the other one, but this is corrected. So we're looking at, let's finalize the yard signs, the rack cards in the coming months, the application, the work with function and flow and digitizing the format. We're going to work with the Birdtown clutches. I've committed to meet with the Valley Forge clutch, the Liberty Bird Alliance clutch, the Bucks County or Lehigh Valley clutch, and Appalachian Audubon clutch. And I'm willing to come if, we need to go out to, Juniata Valley and Lycoming, might be able to find a place where we could do a clutch meeting somewhere that's relatively convenient to talk about the program in person and answer questions. And then it gives us a chance, when we know how many chapters are on board and everything else, to budget for the relaunch of the program and finalize what the relaunch budget's going to be and how much money we need to get this whole thing rolling. In June and July, I guess that's where I was talking about going out to chapters and clutches. We'll enroll chapters that are interested in participation in the program. We'll need to get the key information from the chapters, including their logo and their point of contact, so that we can begin to get the signs produced over the summer. And we want to get them produced and shipped and delivered over the summer point, and work with chapters and bird towns so that they have a rollout for fall events when there are some native plant sales or some other kinds of fall festivals where your chapter may or your bird town may already have an active role each year. And then we're going to see September that it's officially launched. We'll look to next November to convene a meeting of participating chapters to kind of do a review, identify issues that need to be addressed or that we identify after the rollout. So that's the time frame here. We had really hoped way back that we'd have this ready for the spring, but it is a longer timeline than originally thought. But I think that we're going to be able to keep to this one. And then these are the next steps. I'm not going to read each of these, but you can see, what is here on this list. And I think the bottom line is the chapter presidents or chapter representatives that are on board, really going to need, you're going to expect to hear from me or others from our task force, to see if, yep, we're on board and here's our logo and here's the point of contact, for receiving the shipment of signs and that type of thing. And a little bit of review of, okay, here's how we're going to be able to roll out your work in getting the program launched in September. I think that concludes the program. I'm going to take it down. How do I stop screen sharing? I stop share. There it is. I'm always amazed when I'm able to do something digitally. This is not my strong suit, as some of you folks know. So here we are. You can turn on your cameras if you want to be seen. Steve, I'm going to turn it over to you if you want to moderate any questions that might be in the chat, and you can direct them to folks, if as you see it might need to be directed.
Nothing, well, a couple things. Heidi, just to be clear, Bird Beat is a quarterly e-newsletter through Birdtown, PA, intended to provide seasonal tips for residents to support birds and wildlife.
It's quarterly, not every other month. Okay, Christine, that's a load off your mind. You don't have to do it every other month.
What is a Birdtown Clutch? I gave an overview of Birdtowns within a chapter territory / county, used to be county-based, working together, and Heidi elaborated a little bit. Also, meeting in person for Birdtown leaders to share about their work and identify and address regional issues to work on together, and also with their local Audubon chapters. So those are in-person meetings, chapter or Birdtown leaders. There will be a way to register a property without using a QR code, right? Yes, there will be. Individuals who want their properties recognized will not need to pay for the sign. Lee, do you want to address that?
Wait, I think what's going to be hard to make this sustainable, let me just circle back a little bit. What has historically been the donation, we don't sell signs, they are a donation, but the requested donation was $25. And then I think before Audubon Mid-Atlantic ended, it was a $30 donation. I will tell you, and I don't know what's happening with tariffs. I've heard some news today, but I can tell you that the 3 quotes we've gotten from aluminum signs knocked me off my feet, and I think that had to do with the cost of aluminum. They're substantially higher, at least double the cost, if not more, of the cost of the signs that Kelly McGinley produced. She used Signorama. Those signs were around, and we would have to go back about $12 a sign in terms of their cost. And I'm getting as high as $29 and $30 a sign from the folks that you use, Steve, to produce your signs. Their names out of my head, but I know
Voss.
Yeah, Voss Signs, and then I also looked at Signorama, and they were into the $25 a sign. They were the next lowest, and then I did use Minuteman, that was substantially lower, still higher than the old cost, but it's hard to give the signs away. I think if we're going to have people fund and underwrite the signs for the launch without a cost to the chapter in the bird towns, we need to look at sustaining that and looking at a reasonable price for the donation, request for the donation. It's not a price, not a cost. We're all not for profit, but we look at the donation. We need to be able to restore or replenish signs as they hopefully the program is successful and new signs are needed.
Sue asks, who will train chapter volunteers to run the program for their chapter?
That's a good question. We'll probably need to talk a little bit about that with the task force. But I think there's going to have to be I guess a training webinar, at least maybe even one that's recorded, so that if people can't be on a live webinar, we can have that maybe even on the website as a video that can be accessed. Here's what you need to do. That's just right off the top of my head. Is that the best way? I don't know. If there's better ways, we'll look for suggestions.
Speaking of training, I should note that the original program led to something called Audubon Advisors, and it was basically a group of volunteers who would go out and actually help people on their property who were interested in creating a habitat on their property, who hadn't had one yet but needed help. We had funding for that program. It was, managing volunteers, sending them out, and so it was pretty comprehensive. But and we did training through Morris Arboretum. It was pretty good, but it didn't last long. Valerie says, would you consider smaller than a 50 minimum sign count if the signs are not chapter unique?
Well, we've talked about the prospect of a generic sign. And here's what we found, because one of the things as we started looking is that there'd be a great multiplier in the cost if we have to change the logo on each sign. And in truth, we found out that cost is minimal. It's like the editing costs from the art. So the feasibility of putting the chapter logo on doesn't reduce the cost of the sign dramatically at all. So I think there's every advantage if the chapter logo on the sign, I think, is helpful. And it helps to, even though it's a council program, it helps to make it local in each one of the chapter territories. And again, for a chapter like Liberty Bird Alliance, where we have all these clutches, it kind of helps to connect the network and make it more local instead of just something that's statewide with another distant, administrator.
Christine asks, are you planning to use grant money to set up a trust whose dividends will fund the program long term? That'd be great. If not, what do you propose to do to keep the program going sustainably in an increasingly difficult granting environment?
Well, I think I talked about this with Kelly and her original rollout of the program that she relaunched and what her approach was for sustainability. And it was somewhere in the $15,000 range to launch the program, produce the signs, and that it was the donations that came from the sign that was the plan for sustainability. So after the initial costs, and we have folks that will help to underwrite the launch of this program for the council. That's going to be very feasible. But then what happens after the signs are all distributed? We need the donations that come from those signs being distributed to be able to remanufacture or reproduce and get more signs distributed. There was some conversation about would there be any way to share some of the revenue with the Bird Town, with the chapter. And right now, given the cost of the sign production, that's something we got to put in the back burner. But that would have been pretty nice if we would have set, if the price of the signs were closer to, let's say, $15 a sign to produce, and that we made the donation request at $30. Some of those funds would come back to the council. Some funds would stay with the chapter or be redistributed to the chapter and or the Bird Town if it was a Bird Town as well. I don't think anybody's going to get rich over that, but we would certainly have the opportunity to make sure signs could be reproduced with some perpetuity. Again, we might find it. I heard the tariffs are on hold for 90 days. So if that includes aluminum, we might find a different price. I have no clue what's going on in terms of tariffs on aluminum and steel, but did talk to there was another meeting of some chapters from other states, and some use that corrugated forms like you see with political signs. That's just not durable. I think we have to go with aluminum. I don't think any kind of, even though it'd be a lot less expensive to produce, just not worthwhile. And again, using some kind of cling decal in addition to the sign, I think is a good idea. I don't think it's a huge expense, but you know, there again, it'd be nice for somebody to put a cling decal in their window as well as an aluminum yard sign. Or again, if they're in an apartment or if they're in a place where it's harder to put up a sign, they can put a cling decal which goes on the inside of a window to demonstrate that they are a property with with bird habitat recognition.
David asks, how will Audubon Council notify local chapters when people register for the program within our chapter?
Well, again, I'll have more information about this, but what Kelly and Function and Flow is indicating is that the way the form gets digitized online, we get everything in an Excel spreadsheet. So if we do a sort of zip codes, we will know the zip codes. Let's use one like mine. I'll show you the problem too. In my chapter 19038 is in the Liberty Bird Alliance chapter territory. So anybody that signs up in 19038 will notify Liberty Bird Alliance, the point of contact, that, hey, these 8 people have gotten a bird habitat recognition program signs and have registered in your in your chapter territory. Here's the problem with the bird towns. 19038 is in 4 different bird towns. It covers 4 different municipalities. So we'll have to look at the address and recognize that if it's Glenside, we're going to have to look closely to see if it's in Cheltenham Bird Town or if it's in Abington Bird Town or even in Upper Dublin Bird Town. You know, that we'll have to look at some of those nuances, but if everything is on the spreadsheet, we can work that out. And that may be something, a function that we need to give to the chapter to help tease out. I think it'd be a lot easier for people closer to the ground. I know a Glenside and what the zip code, but I would dare to say that, let me pick on somebody. I would dare to say that you would know Birdtown too, Janet, because you were an Abington person at one point. Let's say David. Hey, David, how many bird towns are in the Glenside zip code? You would not have any idea. So I think it'd be easier to get that to the chapter liaison. That's off the top of my head again. I'm making this stuff up as we roll, but I think these are problems that the Birdtown Task Force, and as we go through the shakedown next fall, that we'll be able to tease out.
So Lee, I think the Valley Forge Audubon chapter has 25 bird towns now in the territory.
Show off.
We just
Peter,
have
hi,
a
Peter.
very large territory.
Peter says that he's used fast signs in the past, back to the message board there. So that's something to look into. And Heidi asks, how many signs are being priced for?
Yeah, and that would be the kind of thing as we do the Birdtown Clutch meeting in early June to get a sense that Valley Forge might have to order 200 signs. I'm making that up, but there may need to be a decision that, again, the council underwrites the initial production, but based on whatever the cost factor is for the donation, to be able to determine what needs to go into a restricted account to reorder signs. I'd like to ask, does any of this sound absolutely nuts, saying, hey, pull the plug now? David, I'm glad you shake your head no. We're good.
Christine says she lives in a community which half the residents are economically struggling. They will not pay for a sign. $25 could matter a lot to them. Is there any provision included for including economically distressed communities in the program?
That was actually the original motivation for talking about a window cling that could be maybe only a few dollars.
Yeah,
And figuring that most such people are going to be in smaller properties, maybe in more of a townhouse kind of thing where if you put something in your front window, it would be not that far from where people would pass by.
that's a nice thought, Barbara. That's why I thought of the clings. I also thought of the clings, for people that just have a patio. They're in a high rise and they have, potted plants for hummingbirds and that kind of thing. And, they do not have a lawn or anything else, and an HOA won't let them put a sign out, that they could do a cling. But that's a good thought.
Yeah,
I,
Christine,
yeah.
I'm, with you in Allentown, we have a lot of more urban residences and people without high incomes in them.
Yeah. I would say we could go for a federal grant, but any federal money for, um, the kinds of audiences we're talking about, I think is far and few between, and at least the next several years. But, there might be some programs that would sponsor it, or maybe there'd be some partners in a community that would sponsor, whether it's a bank or a commercial, commercial business that might help to underwrite signs. What I hate doing is, this is my own personal point of view, that if somebody is a person with need, why can't they get the aluminum sign if their yard is a place they can put it like anybody else? Not being second class. It's different if you have a small house, a patio, an apartment, and there's really no place for a metal sign, where a cling makes a lot more sense from a practical point of view. Heidi?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention too, on the Birdtown website, we had that whole section on backyard habitat recognition programs. The only reason we have all those listed is because the program was, released from Audubon Mid-Atlantic. So I think in the future, we will probably make a change to the website, really highlighting this new program, maybe still showing the other programs, but really making a point on our website to really highlight this program and really push, for our Birdtown leaders to encourage residents to sign up for this program.
Yeah, that would be good. That'd be helpful. Yeah, and I have no qualms about being in competition. The one thing about this program, I know Heidi has pointed out, and others, it's the only one that is bird centered. All the other habitat native plant types of signs are really focused on a range of things. You can get some for monarch butterflies, you can get some for insects, and they're all good. They're all good things. And you do find people that seem to want to collect signs. So they don't grow grass anymore, but they sure grow signs in their front yard. But the thing that's a really go
I'm sorry,
ahead.
this is also Pennsylvania too, only a Pennsylvania program.
Yes, this is true. This is true. And I think the other thing, getting Christine's Bird Beat newsletter, I don't know what National Wildlife sends out to people to keep them in the loop and in contact, but the fact that your chapter reaches out to these people and engages them, the fact that the Birdtown does that, the fact that if they're in a Birdtown or not, they still get the Bird Beat, and it gets some other kinds of benefits from having the yard recognized is a benefit. Other things in terms of long range funding are something we need to think about. It's not a task for the task force now, but there may be some ways we can talk about generating more revenue, especially for communities of need, or not for profit, places of worship or schools, or other types of places like that, libraries, that type of thing. Is something to think about. But I do think we'll be good for the launch unless we have 18 chapters with all 200 signs. That could be a little bit of a struggle, but I don't think we'll have that. For those of you that are with the chapter, any of you, can you put a thumbs up or whatever if you think initially, this is not a commitment, but that you think you're on board? Oh, that's great. So I see Lehigh Valley, I see Appalachian, I see York, I see Valley Forge, I see Presque Isle. So that's really good. That's all the chapters that are on there. Barbara, Peter had his thumb up. Did you have your thumb up? I'm just teasing. I want to make sure you guys are simpatico, but that's all good. But this is a good sign. I didn't know, Laura, if you had your thumb up, but that's good. So that, that's 6 chapters right off the bat. And I've kind of used 10 chapters as a minimum, and I think we're going to get other chapters. Valerie's on the call, so I don't know if Conococheague, I kind of think they would be on board because Valerie's on the task force. So that's all good stuff. This is what I was really hoping was to get this kind of response this evening because it really is encouraging. And if you have other questions, we'll be able to try to respond to these as we go further down the road and as we follow up, in later in May with each of you. So, any other questions in the chat, Steve?
Well, Christine wants to know if they'd be able to get a free sign to low-income people if they prove it with a tax form, and locals could help with verifying this. Yeah, I think we kind of talked about that. I mean, we want to. This is an inclusive program. I would tell you that my experience with Audubon is that people who are struggling to put food on the table, I'm not going to say are not interested in birds, but they're struggling to put food on the table, and the habitat sign is not a priority for them. But I think we should absolutely do anything we can to accommodate them if they're interested in it. Absolutely. And I've done programs in Center City, North Philly.
Yep.
And there are certainly people who are receptive to it.
Yep.
But native plants in particular can be costly, maintenance and that kind of thing. And so it's not always a priority. But yeah, that population is certainly on our radar, and I think that's a good idea to make accommodations for them.
Well, I think that's some very important feedback we've gotten this evening. You're on the committee, the Bird Habitat Task Force, Steve, and I've jotted that one down too. And if there's others, we'll do that. Christine, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I actually agree that community is often, working 3 jobs and it isn't really on their radar. But I'm teaching a number of their kids in library programs, and the kids are really excited about it. So there are ways to reach those families. And for example, at our Earth Day Festival, we're giving away native plants and plant seeds. So there are ways to get people starting to have it on their radar and to feel like they're included with access to a sign is something,
Yeah, Christine, I agree. I think the best success we had, and they still do it at Audubon, is going into we did charter mastery, I think it's called, schools in Norristown. The schoolyard habitats are really the place to start, get the kids involved, put a sign up on a schoolyard, and then they go home and tell their parents, hey, guess what we're doing at school, and guess what birds we've seen, and that seems to work. And that's really sort of, I think, the entry point into those more urban communities.
It's good. Jim, I see that you your camera's on. I know you are in for Lycoming Audubon. Did you want to share anything?
Yeah, I tried to put something in the chat. I don't think I was successful, but so yeah, I'm filling in for Bruce, and so I can't make the decisions. I mean, I'm going to say I think we would be interested. I do share Christine's concerns because I was thinking the same thing. We're more rural county than possibly some on the southeastern Pennsylvania ones, and I'm not sure we could get 50 people in our area, but some of them I know would be turned off by a cost. So I wasn't quite clear because at one point I know you mentioned Lee donations, but if it sounds like that the applicants are to pay a fee. Is my understanding correct?
Yeah, we're careful about the language because it has to be a donation, but I think we're taking all this under advisement. We really can't sell the signs because we're a not-for-profit. We don't, we don't charge sales tax, that type of thing. So anything that comes through, I guess we could sell, but we're not going to go through all that kind of rigmarole. It would really be looking at this as a donation. And I think there's other ways to take a look at perhaps funding for, special distribution and underwrite schools and other not-for-profits. The other question I have, not to prolong the evening, but there's large areas of the state that have no chapter and no bird town. I think of Lancaster, for example. So, I would certainly want to reach out to to Ted Nichols and the Lancaster Bird Club to see if they would like to try to engage properties of their members or of others. Berks County has no chapter or Audubon presence, but maybe there'd be the Baird Ornithological Club would want to get on board with the program. We might find some other partners, other bird clubs that want to participate. I haven't really thought of that, thinking about it tonight, actually, but there may be some other ways we would want to make sure the program is promoted in areas that are not necessarily in a chapter territory. I know that Sue had to leave for another program, but Warren County up there in the northwest part of the state, much of Warren County is part of the Jamestown chapter, which is a New York-based chapter, but they do a lot of programming through their nature center for students in Pennsylvania in schools in Warren County. Maybe we'd want to reach out to Jamestown to become involved at the very least with the schools and perhaps members that are in Warren County in their chapter territory. In a very far southwest part of the state, it's not covered by the Audubon Society of Western Pennsylvania, but it's the Mountaineer Audubon chapter that's based in the northern panhandle of West Virginia. So just some thoughts like that, in order to get involved. But if you have other thoughts, if there aren't any other parting questions, this program will be recorded. It is recorded. We'll make sure it gets out to each of you first, and then we'll put it in the May edition of the Drummer so that people can listen. And Heidi, if you think we ought to put it in the May edition of the Birdtown Flyer, we could do that as well, so that bird towns could listen to the recording as well. The chapter leaders or bird town leaders across the state would have access to it. So with that, I don't have anything more. Any closing comments?
Just thank you to the task force for so much work. This looks fantastic, and I'm super excited for it to get launched.
That's great. That is great. We'll figure out ways to give you some feedback as well as we, the application is going to be finished. We'll probably put things together in a package. The sign, maybe some kind of place on our website again, probably in time for the May Drummer, so that people can get caught up on some of the things here. And I'll also have more information from Function and Flow and more details about the processing of applications and the spreadsheet. All right, with that, again, appreciate you spending an evening with me. Now I'm going to go find out about what's happening with the price of aluminum. I'll go.
Good luck with that.
Thank
Thank
Lee.
you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, have a good evening.
You
Good
too.
evening.
All right,
Thanks.
bye-bye.
Good night. Bye.